It's an honor once again to welcome you to this guest session as part of our certification program, the Certified Organization Leadership and Development Consultant Program. As most of you have interacted with us, our focus is on developing 21st century consultants, people who think in 21st century terms and who are so passionate about elevating humanity, people who are passionate about bringing presence to human systems, and people who are passionate about a different approach to organizations. And we do that through the organization development certification. And we do have a current cohort. I see here Violet, Chieza, Mr. Obaseki, who are going through that program. And we meet every Monday this time for 6 months consecutive. And it's an interesting journey. It's a learning process as we develop ourselves in the field of organization development. So one way that we do in our engagements is to have such workshops, guest sessions with scholars and practitioners from across the globe to share insights around the practice of organization development. And we're excited to have Toni willing to support our cohort participants in terms of their consulting engagements. Hence, we have this session today. And before I go into, I hand over the program to Toni for the presentation, I'll just ask those who are here to share some of their expectations from today's program, maybe in about 2 minutes max. And can I start with the cohort participants, Violet or Chieza, anyone who can start expectations from today's session with Toni? Violet, Chieza, or Mr. Samuel? Yes, are we there? Mr. Obaseki?
Okay, so I was waiting for, I know the rule is ladies first, so I thought ladies will give the go ahead. Thank you for it's been a wonderful experience so far on the journey towards becoming a consultant, you know, and a profound privilege to have Toni with us to share an insight, you know, into, you know, what the OD, you know, given our experiences so far, some of the things she has learned and things that could be of interest to us as well in the course of us trying to become a consultant. So I'm expecting that at the end of the day, Toni will be able to give us a much more practical and penetrating insights, you know, towards the practice of organizational development from our own experiences, you know, so that at the end of the day, we'll live better off, you know, and that's it. So that's what I'm expecting.
Thank you so much. And as Chieza is preparing, I see Violet's message in the chat box. Would like to hear Toni's experience, encounters, case studies, what has worked and what has not worked. Toni, I hope we are not putting pressure on you there with these expectations. Chieza.
Thank you, Doc. I'm expecting to learn from Toni's experience. As in particular, the storytelling is one of the techniques that OD practitioners use. So I'm interested to experience such a presentation from a storytelling perspective. And I also expect to learn a lot from her practice as I develop my practice.
Thank you so much. Fatma, you also had some curiosities in storytelling. Any expectations from this session? Yes, Fatma, or anyone else?
Okay, this is Joy. Can I
Yes.
have a go?
Sure.
Okay, well, this is my very first session, and well, for my previous experience, I have always erroneously put human resources and OD as one together. I have really never seen a clear distinction, and I would confess that well, it's this year particularly that I'm able to understand that I've been able to understand that there is indeed a clear distinction. So for my first meeting, my expectation really was to understand from the outset that distinction. Yes, I think that basically that's it for me as I begin the journey.
Thank you so much for that. HR and OD, the distinction between the two. Anyone else before we start our official proceedings? Okay, so thank you so much. Toni is a storyteller, a researcher, OD consultant. She's currently pursuing her PhD, and the focus of her work is on scaling up Black women businesses. Toni is based in the US, and please do connect with her on LinkedIn as Toni Lorraine Johnson if you have to learn more about her practice. Yes, Toni, I'll hand over to you this for the presentation. I hope the expectations have not unsettled you in any way. Over to you, Toni.
I'm running, man. I'm picking up my briefcase and I'm out. So yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. I truly appreciate being here. First, let me tell you this. There is no distinction, right? If you are an OD practitioner, if you're an HR practitioner, it's part of who you are. It's just an extension of who you are. Storytelling. We all tell stories, right? We tell stories to our friends. We tell stories to our mates, our children. We tell stories all the time. And so now, if you want to go into OD consulting, you're just telling an organizational story from your perspective, right? Because your perspective is unique. That's why they're reaching out to you. So I wanted to see if I could share my screen. Hold on. If you would enable that.
Sure, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'll do this and share screen, and hopefully it will come up. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes,
can you see that?
Up. Yes, it's there now.
Now, yes. What do you see? All the things at the bottom? Or you just see one?
We can see the slides at the bottom. Yeah.
All right, so let's just close this out. And I will hit present this way. This is my first time using Canva to present. So if you don't, are you guys familiar with Canva?
Not yet, we're here to learn as well from you.
I'm just asking a question. So let me just tell you this as well. I am very interactive. I will ask questions because that's how we learn, right? So has anybody ever used Canva that's on this call?
No, not yet.
No,
okay.
I haven't.
All right, so it is Canva. That's canva.com. And so Canva is, it's like, I call it a Word on steroids. So you get, pictures like PowerPoint on steroids. So you can, build your brand through Canva. They do have a free subscription. So it's something that you can check out And hopefully, you know, this is how I created my so-called PowerPoint through Canva. So this is my first time actually presenting. So Archer OD consultants. So as I was saying earlier about who we are, right? I am a Sagittarius. My birthday's in November. And so I reign under the sign Sagittarius, which is an Archer. And so for me, I've always looked at that from a child, like, wow, you know, I love the stars. I love astrology. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so for me, I realized that we are all born with a quiver, right? A quiver is the bow and arrow, right? That's where the bow and arrow, that's where you keep your arrows. And so that's the pouch, the quiver. And so we're all born with a quiver, and we have a whole bunch of arrows back there. But in order to hit the target, you got to pick the right arrow. So this actually is my logo of my consultancy business, and it really is personal to me. And so I think that's one of the first things when you decide to do consulting, you're bringing your experience to an organization. So it's really important that you personalize it. That's number one. That's the first takeaway, hopefully. Now, let's go to the next slide. This slide is I call it my money slide. Because again, this represents Archer, but you know, what targets are your organization missing? That's one of the first questions I ask. They're like, wow, what targets? Yeah, we got a lot of targets, Toni. And I'm like, well, what targets are you missing? And let's prioritize them. So I'm talking to you as if I was talking to a potential client, because also we have to realize is that you can't take everybody as your client. You have to be specific. And it's interesting because I was just reading a article on LinkedIn earlier today, and they was talking about how people, we need clients, and you know, it's like cold calling, and people are reaching out and trying to get clients because you got to pay your bills, right? Bills still pay. You still got to pay your bills every month. But yet and still, the thing about it, with even if it's not OD, you have to be specific in what you do. You have to pick a niche and say, this is who I am and this is what I do. Because I know for me personally, I am not everyone's cup of tea, man. I am not. I just posted a post today on LinkedIn because someone slid into my DM and said, hey, you know, do you understand what flow state is? We'll talk about flow state later. And it was interesting because I had just finished a PowerPoint and I'm like, I know what flow state is. It's a part of positive psychology. And we'll talk about, I actually have a slide with that. And he wanted me to, you know, sign up for, you know, he's soliciting. So he wanted me to sign up for his particular, you know, service. And I put the post out on LinkedIn today. And I said, you know, how the audacity for you or someone to think that I would sign on to something that I don't know. So for me, relationships are currency. So now today, as we sit here, this is currency to me. I am building a relationship in the diaspora. So when I decide to come to Nigeria, I can reach out. If I decide to come to Zimbabwe, I can reach out. This is what it is. And this is what you're going to be doing in your consultancy. Currency, relationship is my currency. And I tell people that all the time, because I know that my relationships over the lifespan will net me X amount of money. And I'm not looking at the money because I don't focus on the money. I focus on the relationship. And you build those relationships, and especially young in your OD consultancy, it's really important. And I'll talk a little bit about my OD when I first started in 2012. 2012, I was working as a chef. I was teaching. I was teaching culinary. And I was in my I was still in my undergrad. In 2012, I was still in undergrad. And I decided, because I had a background in human resources, I decided, you know, I want to start consulting on the side. And when I started consulting, a lot of people said, oh no, you're a chef. And I had that on my resume, but I also had my HR experience. And a lot of people couldn't understand why a chef wanted to go into HR. And what I did was I blended the two. So in the hospitality space, I am the queen in Philadelphia of talent management, organizational development for the hospitality space specifically. And so I work a lot in hospitality. I do work in other genres because of those are the relationships I've built over time. But specifically, I really target the hospitality space because the hospitality space is usually low paying workers, high turnover rate, and there is so much going on with hierarchy, right? And restaurants, you restaurants scale and they scale quickly, and so really understanding their culture and what they want to pursue is how I help them. And so over the years, I have worked with many different restaurants. However, it wasn't easy getting in. You have to learn to speak the language of the organization or the sector that you want to work in. So if that's IT, hospitality, medical, whatever that is, you have to be able to first build a relationship. Second, speak the language. William Butler Yeats, speaking the language of the people, man. You got to speak in their language. So this is my language. And because what happens is, and I think this actually transcends all of the genres that I work in, because everybody has a target. Every organization has a target and they're all missing the target. Let me go to my next slide. Like I told you, I'm always interactive, man. So my first exercise for you, you don't have to share. I would like someone to at least share one, but I want you to do this because I want you to think about, as you're going through this program and as you're connected with Dr. Justine, this program, OD is a systems-based program. We look at multiple systems. We look at a whole system. So let's say the UN. I think all of us are familiar with the United Nations. That is a system of governments, right? And how are we supposed to change that? How do we bring ourselves as a consultant to say, why do you think you're good enough to be in that position? That's the question I'm actually asking you on this slide. Why? What do you believe within yourself that think that you could bring to the table and make you a really good consultant? I want you to think about that. You might even take a picture of the slide. You might write it down later. You might want to think about, because I'm a thinker, so I need to think about things. But the reason I'm going to give you my answer. The reason why I'm a good consultant, because I know my life is very unique. I know that my journey from being homeless, single mother, 6 children, 3 restaurants in 2 countries, like I know all of this is about my uniqueness. And we each have it. And that's the beauty. That is the beauty of storytelling, man. Because when you're in OD and you're in your consultancy, the stories that you hear within the organizations that you work in, you can relate that back to your own life. And it becomes personal. Because the first thing I know, I think it is not Brene Brown. She is Amy, not Amy. Yeah, her name is Amy. I forget her. I always forget her name, but she's out of Harvard. And she says, her research stems on respect. When you meet a person within the first 30 minutes, first 30 seconds, can I trust this person? Can I respect this person? Those are the things that we think about in the first 30 seconds of meeting someone. So if the first 30 seconds, you're building trust with someone, how do you think you could be a great consultant? You only got 30 seconds, man. 30 seconds to really wow somebody without even saying a word sometimes. So does anybody want to share, since I've been talking a lot, anything that they think that they bring to the table to make them a great consultant?
Thank you. I will ask Tina to start us through on this. Tina, I see you are there. Tina.
You can put it in the chat if you don't want to talk.
Yeah. Or anyone else who is ready?
No worries. Listen, one thing about me is that it's okay. We live in such a society that forces us to say, do, do, do. That's not me. Hello, Tina.
Hey, Dr. Justin, and thank you, Tori. Sorry, I was actually in a noisy place. I just got out. So for me, one of the reasons, if you could just take that question again.
Sure. Excuse the noise, because my neighbor, they always decide to wait until I'm on Zoom to make noise. So my question is, what are some of the things that you bring to the table that you believe that make you unique to make you a great consultant, an OD consultant? What are some of those things?
Let me speak before it escapes. Can I say something?
Just 1 second, Mr. Samuel. Yes, Tina, did you get that?
Okay, so I just came back in. I think I got out of the link, so I just came back in. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify from Tori. What was the question? Because my line was going off.
Yes, any reason why you believe you can be a great consultant?
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that was the question. Okay, so for me, just in addition to what Tori had said, apart from bringing my own uniqueness into the organization, is I am someone who believes in transformation a lot, and I know that going into organizations, many of the things that we see, people are used to doing things in a certain way, and so many times you find that even when people say they want change, in reality, they are actually averse to change. So helping them to actually institutionalize that change, working with them, going through the changes, being there with them, just bringing my own experience to key into what it is that's been going on in that organization and how we can take it from where they are to where they really want to go. So bringing my own uniqueness to, tie into what is already going on, what is existing in the organization, and then see how we can marry it to where they want to go.
Thank you very much. That is very true. You know, in organizations, as an HR practitioner for over 20 something years, one of the things that I realized is that people get stuck in a particular way of doing things. And so it's really important that we are open to understanding first that they're having a challenge, because a lot of people, especially consultants that I work with, sometimes struggle with that. They're saying, you know, this organization hired me for change and I'm ready to change and let's get this thing going. Change is small increments over time. Small increments over time. And so as a consultant, what I've learned, so this is some of the, let me give you a story really quickly. So I was in charge of an organizational change program for an employer, and they were actually buying out another company. And the other company had a different culture, but it was, you know, it was complementing, it would complement the lines of business. So when I went to go meet the HR person, and I wanted to do my due diligence from an HR standpoint, I began to have a conversation with him, and he said to me, "Oh, we just want to do our 8 and skate." And I didn't know what that meant. And I said, "Could you clarify what 8 and skate means?" And he said, 8 hours and skate out of here. And I said, wow, that's very interesting. And he says, yeah, we all do that. We do 8 and skate. We don't care about anything else. And I said, oh, well, our culture is a little different because we are vested in our employees. We really want to understand what our employees want to do. And so I told my boss, I said, listen, this is going to be really hard. This is going to be really hard because these people really do not want to somebody poking in their business, right? Poking in their business and saying, what are you doing after work? All of these things, because I think that what we've understood over the past 30 years is that people bring their full selves to work. That's what we know for sure. Now, they may not want to admit it, but they do bring their full selves to work. And even as much as you want to check it at the door, you still have to address situations that you particularly don't think you have to address, such as childcare. So when this organization when we proceeded to overtake this organization, it was a process of 3 months. Very quickly. It was 3 months, and I got 2 direct reports. And so with my direct reports, I sat down with them and I said, well, tell me about, what do you want to do from a professional standpoint? I didn't want to get anybody's personal business because I could tell, I already knew that they did not want people in their personal business. And both of them said to me, they said, Toni Lorraine, I've never been asked that question. I said, oh, you haven't? He said, I've never been asked that question, what I want to do in my professional life. And I said, well, even if it's not inside this organization, what do you want to do? And so they proceeded to tell me they didn't know. And so for me, that was an opportunity for mentorship, putting them in different places throughout the organization to see what they like, see what they didn't like. Now, not every organization has that ability, right? And after 6 months, I would say 6 months after the original takeover, half the employees left. Yeah, that's true. Half the employees left. And the other half who stayed really wanted to be developed. So it depends on the person. And I always tell people there's no organization without a single person. You have to look at people as individuals. Before we can get into that's why OD is really important to me, because OD says systems, but I say there's no system without one person. You have to start with one. And usually the one you have to start with is self. Did you have a question? Mr. Katie? I was just looking at his mic. All right, so.
Before you move on,
sure.
Mr. Samuel wanted to share something, and Chiesa did put a response in the chat box. Mr. Samuel. You're muted if you're speaking. Yes.
I just do ask a question. Okay, you put it on the screen that to mention 3 reasons why one believes that he or she can become a great consultant. So for me, as a person, I have always been a people person, and I know OD boils down to people in the organization. And my background from sociology to human resource and coming down to OD has prepared me for that mission. So it's like you said, my mission here is to connect those dots and see how I can, support the organization to get to wherever they are going to achieving their mission. So I've always been a people person. And for the mere fact that I've always been a people person has prepared me for that mission. It's all about me now preparing my mind to learn from people like you, learn from Dr. Justin, and see how it has been to take the step further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The alignment table. One of the things that I truly believe in is an alignment. And just about 2 weeks ago, I had a consult because I interview people who want to work with me. I interview them. And these are organizations who need help. And if they've usually find my name through someone I've worked with. It's always a referral in consultancy. And so this person has a, what do you call it? A startup. It's a startup, it's a tech startup. And we sat down and he told me his values, his mission, and what his aim was for his organization, because it was a startup and only had 30 employees. And I sat across the table from him and I said, we are not aligned. I cannot work with you. The reason why I told him that is because he didn't understand the use of self. The use of self, if you, I know many of you are probably familiar with David Jameson. I know Dr. Justine is one of his colleagues, our OD colleagues, and the use of self in OD, especially in consultancy, is so very important. If you don't know what use of self is, I think you need to, I can actually send you the articles. Dr. Jameson has really revised this over the years. I think it started in 2010 with 2 other co-authors. And over the years, he has definitely revised this and made it applicable. Really starting with yourself, right? And really looking at what I call the mirror of reflection and mastering your mind. The reason why I have scalability continuum in the middle is because ultimately in your consultancy, you want to read scalability continuum. You want to be able to scale your business. But let's look at the bigger picture. Even though scalability is under the table, because that's like something you're not thinking about right now, but it's still there. But the mirror of reflection is very prominent on the table. The reason why is really because we have to be able to look at ourselves, our biases. And I know you may hear that a lot, and I know that it may seem redundant, but it is so very true. Because when the tech startup, I knew going into this conversation, I was biased. I knew because he was a Caucasian male who came from a very affluent family and has never worked a day in his life until he decided to do his startup. So I knew I was biased coming in. I knew that. And so I had to check my biases. But the reason why I decided not to work with him is because he didn't understand what leadership looked like. He thought it was his people's, he said, I'm trying to figure out the phrase he used. It's the people's problem to figure out what they want in his organization. But that's his organization. So I didn't understand. So my alignment table was not aligned. He was not sitting at my table, was not alignment. And so that's why I chose not to work with him. And you'll find that a lot of people in C-suite are out of alignment. And that's why I tend to work with mid-managers in my consultancy, because usually C-suite will contact me, or I'll get another referral from a consultant who is working with C-suite and says, hey, Toni, I know you like working with mid-level managers, which I do. And I'll usually work with mid-level managers because that's where the bottleneck happens in organization. And the bottleneck is okay, so you got C-suite up top, you got middle management, and you have the front line. The thing about it is that I've worked all 3. I worked all 3. So I understand the bottleneck in the middle, because you're struggling, because most mid managers, they want to please their boss, but they also want to help the person on the front line because they remember being there. And so that's really important that you have your table aligned, and you must understand, look in yourself, because I remember when my first job was scooping ice cream. I remember that, right? And really understand what you're bringing every day. So every day in consultancy can be different. You may be doing paperwork, and even when you're doing your paperwork and writing reports, it is really important to look at that mirror of reflection. How am I showing up today? You know, what am I processing? What are the feelings that I'm having? Why I'm saying what I'm saying? Because this can impact lives. What I do impacts lives. And if you look at it in that way, it'll help you to stay grounded. Like, you have to think of it. If I was in a position and somebody wrote this report and it affected my life, How would I want this report to be written? And mastering your mind. The reason why I say mastering your mind is because it's really important to understand that the mind is a powerful thing. We have the ability in OD to change and shift a paradigm, to change how an organization sees itself. They come to us because they need help. And we have the ability to help with that change most times. But like I said earlier, change is small increments over time. And you have to be upfront with that organization and say to them, this change is not going to happen in 3 months. This change is not going to happen in 6 months. It's not going to happen. It may be a year. It may be, I'll put you on a year program and we'll do follow-ups every 6 months. That's usually when I sign a contract, it's usually for a year. And most consultants that I work with, they usually, oh, it's 3-month contract. No, I sign a year because I understand from failures. Let me tell you about a failure. So I think it was in 2 years, I'm in my consultancy. And a friend of mine who she was working in HR. She was like, Toni, this is a perfect job for you. I know you can do it. And I was like, yes, I know I can do it. I got it. Cool. I meet with the CEO, and it's a horticultural organization. And I go and we have breakfast and it's lovely. And he says, Toni, I really want to change. They've had a really bad CEO, and I want to be a good CEO. And I think, I want to change the culture. Well, first of all, when somebody says, I want to change the culture, first question, what is the current culture? I didn't ask that question. I didn't ask it. I did not ask what was the current culture. And wrong answer. So, and I said, okay, sure, we can change. Okay, no problem. Because I was still young in my consultancy and I did not ask the right question. So eventually I go into the organization. Mind you, it's part-time because I still have my full-time job. I'm still chefing. And so I go into the organization 4 days a week after work. And I go in and I start changing things. Yeah. I start saying, oh, no, you need to do this right. And you're doing that wrong. You're doing this wrong. And well, honey, the CEO pulled me in after 2 months and said, Toni, this isn't working. This isn't working. You've made the change too quick. And people were very upset. They were really, truly upset. And I did lose the job. Yes. And because it was such a learning experience, and I was devastated because I knew what I was doing from a pure standpoint. Like, I want to help, I want to do this. And I was like, oh no, they can do this better. And especially as an HR practitioner, I knew things could just be streamlined. Well, what happens is I waited 2 more years. He was still a CEO. I wrote him an apology letter. And I wrote the organization an apology letter. Yeah. Because I still felt it, like that was still just gnawing at me, and I felt it. And today he actually asked me to come back. I think it was a year later, he asked me to come back and do some trainings for the organization. But again, relationships are currency. So I learned, and him and I did have dinner one night and we talked about it. He was like, oh, honey, you were terrible. He said, you changed everything. You just came and just did a whole new 360. He said people were very upset. But that is one of the reasons that I can tell you from a consultancy standpoint, you need to ask the right questions. And sometimes you don't know the right questions to ask, right? And so that's why it's really important to have a network of OD professionals that you can say, hey, I'm getting ready to go on this call. Could you look at my notes or whatever that may be? And I didn't have that. Even from an HR, if you know HR practitioners, ask them. You have to ask, because if you don't want to make that mistake. Like I said earlier, you only have 30 seconds for that trust to start building, right? And now if you're going in and you want to change things, change whole systems, and without asking people how the system is working, because a lot of CEOs think the system is working, but the people in the middle say, no, this is not working. That's not working. So I hope that the scalability continuum. This is what my dissertation is actually about, the scalability continue, growing your business. How do you scale your business up? Because what happens is if you're on the alignment table and you're doing the things for yourself and for your client, you can reach scalability. Like I'm at the point where I'm reaching scalability in my business, that I could hire another OD consultant, that I could hire or, outsource, because that people want to remember, I am Toni and I'm unique. However, if I bring Dr. Justine on, I know that he's unique too, but I also know that the foundational underpinnings that we both have, that he's going to bring his own uniqueness, but we also have the foundational values from an OD perspective. So I think that that's really understanding, that's how you reach the scalability continue. You don't, it's under the table, but it's still present. All right, any questions?
I'll just make a quick comment here as an encouragement to colleagues in line with this table. I think most of the time we go into meetings and we sit on that chair and we're clueless. We're just there. We're just attending a meeting. The conversations go on and the meeting is over. And we don't really know what transpired. Yes, we were exchanging ideas in that meeting room, but what really did we achieve during that meeting? So as an encouragement to colleagues here, I think tomorrow when we go to our offices and we sit on that desk, we need to have this table in mind to say, what's in my mind at the moment? Why am I here? What am I doing? What do I need to do today? And am I effectively using myself as an instrument? And reflect on what's on the table. Reflect on yourself. That's the whole being awareness and the whole thinking awareness. And what can I do better today in order to drive this organization forward? I think you're on the scalability continuum. As you sit on that desk tomorrow morning and just being intentional, I think that's what the table is trying to emphasize. For us to be intentional when we are engaging with the client, when we're engaging with our day-to-day activities, and having that consciousness to say, I need to do things differently. I need to engage in this conversation differently. What am I bringing to the table? In most instances, we go to work, we are used to be in that office. We just carry ourselves there. At times, we don't even know how we got there. We are just there. The day is over, we leave, and we're really not intentional about the work that we are doing. So what I'm picking from this table is for us to be grounded, and we can start that grounding from where we are working currently and just start practicing being intentional, even right where you are now, as you're sitting on that chair where you are, and just mastering your mind, reflecting on yourself and this conversation, checking on your use of self. What can I do better as we interact with the words that Toni is sharing? I think as OD consultants, when we have that practice among ourselves, we become grounded, and that's how we can then become effective. That's what I'm picking from this. I don't know if anyone else has a contribution there. All right. Yes, Toni.
So as you were talking about self, one of the things that the flow theory, 1970, scholar, he was a psychologist. His name is really long. I cannot pronounce it correctly. I don't like to butcher anyone's name, but it was 1970. He wanted to understand how athletes reach that state of performance, right? And so flow, the state flow is these dimensions. And so it's like working intensely. You're like, you ever get in a rhythm? That's what it is, getting a rhythm of flowing, of doing what you do, right? Once you've reached scalability, it's real like, wow. And the faster you can go through these and recover, the faster you learn to perfect your craft, that you'll be getting into the state flow. And so state flow really looks at arousal. Why am I aroused? by working with this organization, right? What is arousing me to not just money, because if you're doing it for the money, you'll be out of business really soon. That I can tell you for sure. And how is it flowing for me? Because this is like looking at self. This is truly looking at yourself. The reason why I really concentrate on myself is because I know that there's no one like me. And so because of that, I do have skills and abilities and I can apply them. But when I understand, because I know that when if I'm bored, because boredom in this state flow is something we have to fight against. Like Dr. Justine was talking about, if you're sitting at the meeting and you're like, okay, what am I supposed to be getting out of this meeting? Am I being present? Being present. Are you worrying? The anxiety, all of those things are you. And if you don't address them, they will impede your consultancy. One of the things that we always tell people is to suppress. We live in a society that we're supposed to suppress a lot of things. And we suppress. In Jamaica, we say pressure busts pipe. So if you have a pipe and there's pressure in it, it must burst, right? And so I want you guys to, you can take a picture of this slide. I can even send you the slides, but really dive into this and if you are going to be a consultant, you need to master this flow state. And you have to learn how to recover. Because let's say, what I mean by recovery, so you've been with a client for a year, and now it is time to end the contract. And so it's like you feel like after you've won something, after you completed something, like, you're coming down, right? You're coming down off your high, man. But how do you recover and get back in the saddle? Because a lot of people tend to, especially a lot of consultants that I know, including myself, I've done it. Like, that was a hard one. I'm going to sit back and no, we need to recover and keep it going. Because you learn something from every client, every new client you get, you're going to learn something. And I call it your toolbox, and you'll have new instruments in your toolbox. But really understanding how to control one's mind, that's why I said master your mind. This is part of mastering your mind. When you master your mind, you master your craft. Are you worrying about this client? Are you worrying about getting the report that the client wanted? Don't be afraid to miss a deadline, but always communicate. Never be afraid to miss a deadline. And I always tell people that, and I tell clients that right up front. I said, I may miss a couple deadlines. They're like, what? What kind of consultant are you? And I tell them why. Because sometimes in OD, it requires thinking, it requires research, it requires conversations with people, outside of that organization. And we all live in different time zones. It's 12 o'clock here. So you have to be able to be comfortable with that. I think being a consultant, you have to be comfortable with ambiguity. You really do. And if you are not comfortable with ambiguity, consultancy is not for you. That I can tell you, because there's a lot of ambiguity in OD already, because OD is a cross section of many different disciplines. And you're not going to know everything. And I still don't know everything. I still ask a lot of OD practitioners around the world. I say, I need some help. I need some help. And people know when I say I need help, I actually need it. Because I try to do my due diligence on the other spectrum. I say, what? This is what I need help with. Be specific. Be specific when you need help from someone. Saying, I had an OD consultant reach out to me 3 weeks ago. And she said, Toni, I'm making a change management plan for I think it was like a hair salon or something. That lady had multiple hair salons in New York City, and she wanted all of her people to be on the same page of how they were selling in their salons, and so it was a whole 4 different format of change, and a lot of the women were not on board, because remember, you have to meet people where they're at. That's like the golden rule. You got to meet people where they're at. And these women Some of them are high school graduates, some of them are not. And so if you can't speak in their language, they're not going to understand. And so if I don't do anything, I will not do anybody any justice if I don't tell you guys, make sure you are speaking the language in which the organization speaks, because I speak many different languages. I speak street, I speak patois, I speak many different languages, because that's what it requires. And be ready for that, because some people don't like ambiguity. You got to be comfortable with ambiguity. So I wanted to keep it short and sweet.
Just a quick one there. I see a comment on ambiguity from Mr.
Sure,
Samuel. Mr. Samuel, can you comment on that? I saw your curiosity in the chat box.
I didn't see. I can't see the chat box for some reason.
Mr. Samuel, what's your ambiguity? Your curiosity on ambiguity there?
Yes, so I was just thinking when she said, as a OD consultant, or you want to be a consultant, you have to be comfortable with ambiguity. Here we are looking at how to understand and clear the issue of ambiguity on the table. I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking, how I'm just thinking, how do we reconcile this with an organization that you are trying to help to facilitate a process to get to where they are going to? How do you reconcile this? I'm just thinking, it's a bit clouded in my brain, so I'm not sure yet how to figure that out.
Very good question. So let me tell you this. You have to take copious note. This is where, if you want, so what people tell you, that you have to listen to the said and the unsaid. And this is what you're going to learn over time, right? Because you're going to mess it up a couple of times. That's just who we are. But what I can say is this. When you write, when you have the first interaction, be it the HR person, C-suite, whatever that looks like for you, write copious notes. I ask people, can I record them? Because I tell them I will delete it, because I do delete it. If I record our conversation, it's because I want to make sure I hear everything and I capture everything that you're saying to me, because everything you're saying to me is truly important. And I want to do the best job I can for your organization. And I tell people that, and most times people will allow me to record them, because what happens is it's usually somewhere in between. Yeah, somewhere in between is what they really are looking for. And when you're starting out consultancy, I always ask, do you mind if I talk to other people in the organization who are affected by this? And who do you think those people would be? And usually they'll give me other C-suite people. And I'll say, well, what about middle management? What about your front line? Oh, well, they don't know. They don't know. Why don't they don't know? Are they executing it? Do you mind? And I always, because that's, again, the alignment within the organization. And most organizations, some people, I know some consultants do surveys, right? And hear and get that feedback. It's really important to get feedback. And you're saying, your question is like, how do I get them to their goal? Well, first we have to understand the goal. And I call it picking sense out of nonsense. Because sometimes it's nonsense, but you got to pick the sense out of it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And I will add there another dimension, Toni, in terms of the consulting approaches. If you are going into an organization as an expert, it means there is no fog in any way. You know everything that's happening ahead of you. So an expert mindset will tell you that you have the answers as a consultant, and you're just going to give solutions to the organization. But if you're going there as a process consultant, as you indicated, you need to engage with middle managers. You need to engage with those on the front line. You are putting yourself in a position where you are saying, we need to explore together. And we don't know what's ahead of us. We are not sure where we are going, but we have to go somewhere. There's so much fog ahead of us. I don't have the answers. Neither do you have the answers yourself. But let's start asking questions and let's engage. This is where you then become uncomfortable with these timelines that we set in change projects. And we want to meet the deadlines. those who go in organizations as experts, they are tied with these flow activities. They have so much anxieties. They want to be in control. They have so much boredom because they want to demonstrate their expert mind. But if you're going there as an OD consultant from a process consultation point of view, and you're saying, let's explore together, we are in this together, I'm partnering with the system, then you'll be comfortable with their ambiguities because nobody knows what's ahead of us. But the more we engage, the more we discover and we find new insights.
True, very true, Dr. Justine. And it's a really important, because you don't know where you're going, to really make sure you give updates, right? And I try to give weekly updates. It may be some days, some weekly reports may be 5 pages, some weekly reports may be a paragraph. Depends on the progress that you made. Because again, you're also tracking your own progress, but giving them updates helps them to feel more comfortable of the unknown, because it's the unknown, right? And when you're traveling to the unknown, you don't know. And so you have to, like I said, that ambiguity, it starts to lessen as you're giving the updates, and they're like, oh, okay, I understand the process now. And it usually is about a month or two before somebody gets comfortable and says, you know, okay, that's just in my opinion. So yeah. I am not going to keep you long, but I want you to know this. Theory is only as good as the person who is presenting it. When you're in OD, you have, you know, Shine, and you got Jameson, and you got all kinds of theories, right? And all kinds of change management theories in OD. However, it's only as good as you and how you understand it and how you apply it. Because how I apply a particular theory may be totally different than how Dr. Justine applies it. And so that is why it is so important for you to start with your own self and think about yourself as an organization. How do I change this organization? How do I, you know, limit the biases? Like if you start with self, because you are an instrument. That's what use of self talks about, you as the instrument. And Dr. Jameson is brilliant, okay? Because I am the instrument. I am the change management instrument. So if you start with self, and, you know, I believe in God. I believe in prayer. I believe in meditation. I believe all of these things to help me to be centered and recognize biases when I'm dealing with people. Even if I wasn't a consultant, even if I was in, you know, an employee of an organization, even then, I still need to do these things, because you're going to meet employees who have no clue, who are in C-suite, who have no clue of what's going on. And you need to be able to identify that. You need to be able to identify and say, okay, and you need to write notes. I have a little a diagram, and I put little people on it, and I put their names as I'm meeting them. I'm like, this is Toni, and she works here, and I do that because I know there's power in me writing right then and there. There's power in that because I've captured a moment. It's like a snapshot. So I want you, if you don't walk away from today with anything, walk away is that you have the skills and abilities, and you will make mistakes. But if you build the relationship, if you build your currency, man, you will have, you'll make mistakes. People don't like making mistakes. And if you make the mistake, you can get over it. You may lose some money. I lost money in mistakes, but that was part of my process. But I know that being present and knowing that I am making a change for organizations, that's all I need, man. That's all I need. But build your relationship currency, build that currency, and you'll be rich already coming out the gate. Because I can tell you this, 90% of my clients are referrals from other OD or HR practitioners. That I can tell you. So, Dr. Justine, I'm yielding back the mic, my friend.
Thank you so much. Just a quick one, Mr. Samuel wants you to go back to the slide on the alignment table. I think he wants to get a picture of that
Sure.
there.
Hold on one second.
Thank you so much, Toni, for this conversation. And I do hope this conversation ignites some sense of curiosity in each and every one of us regarding our journey as consultants, and understanding that the consultants field is contaminated currently with people who view themselves as experts, and they want to appeal to clients, they want to appeal to C-suites, and they are good at building this relationship currency based on their expert mindset. And we are coming in as OD people, understanding, deeply grounded in humanistic values, how do we build sustainable relationships and position ourselves for impact in this highly competitive environment where someone is going to a client system as an expert. And Toni, from an African point of view, a consultant is considered someone who brings solutions to the organization. And we're now bringing in a model that says we need to co-create solutions. This whole expert mindset has not led our organizations anywhere in terms of leading sustainable strategic change. It gave organizations some short wins, but eventually the organizations are not sustainable. So one question that probably I would want you to respond to is, how do we create that balance and address the issue where C-suite leaders see experts as consultants? When we signed Mr. Samuel there in our organization, we want him to bring all the answers. And if Mr. Samuel presents himself as a process consultant, he says, I don't have answers, you have the answers. The leaders will think he doesn't know anything. How do we create that balance? And especially in reframing senior leaders' mindsets?
Difficult question. It is a very difficult question, because what happens is we have to look at the systems, the structured systems that we work within. And so here in the US, it's the same. People expect you to come in, make a change. You're the expert, you're the SME, and we're going to listen to you. And this is where you have to be brave. This is why I know I'm a rock star, because I am so brave, because that co-creation is what I tell people, because this is why I have the meetings that I do with whatever client, because I'm interviewing them and I want to understand them and I want them to understand how I work. And this is where, if you came into OD to be rich, you need to get out this field. This is not going to make you rich, but it will make you rich in such a way where your heart is warm at night, right? But what I can say is this: it is important to pick and choose your battles, right? And the co-creation comes is when you may go through 10 organizations before you find one that you can actually co-create with. And that's the reality. It's a sad reality, but it's the reality. But you make that one organization that you're able to co-create with, you make that your example. It may be the organization you're working with now. It may be the organization you're employed with now. But make that one organization, find that one organization. And I know when my first 3 clients that I had, I did not charge them $1. Did not charge, and they're still my 3 flagship organizations that I can go to. And this is over, I don't know, we're in 2020, this is in 2012. Yeah, so, and I can still go back and say, this is an organization that has grown over the years, and I still consult for 2 of them over the years. And so the co-creation, it's an uphill battle. I don't want to tell you it's going to be easy, but you have to be steadfast in your beliefs. Again, starting with use of self, you have to be steadfast in your beliefs, the no, and you say to them, yes, I am an expert in HR. Yes, I am an expert in this. However, what the research says is that You know, change happens in small increments over time. What do you think about that? Do you think change can happen today? And when that's how I start the conversation. You think I can come in here and change this within a week? How? And you put the onus back on them and make them really think about, wow, I'm expecting her to change my stuff in 1 month. And I can't even do it. I've been here 3 years. So that's where you have to be, I call it spicy with your language. Yeah, you got to be spicy with the words that you choose, because you have to be real about the situation. Because what happens is, in consultancy, if you mess this up, remember, your name is your reputation. And so you don't want to get a reputation of saying, oh, you can actually, because like if you say, okay, Toni, what is the, HR, what is the overtime rules? What is, what does Edward Schein say? I can regurgitate that information. I can regurgitate theory. And I tell my clients that I can regurgitate theory. However, but putting theory into practice in people who don't know it, it's a challenge. And so let's do this together. Let's think about how we can get this into the organization and make sure they are, like, I am a predictive index practitioner. Predictive index is neuroscience. It talks, it's like the disc, right? And I actually use that for me, because it helps me to understand where their mind is at. Understanding their drives. I need to understand the person's drive. So part of my OD package has some neuroscience in it too. So what I'm telling you is to gather your tools in your OD box, but that co-creation is with your tools, but also make sure you're using the right words and bringing them in. It's not just me being a subject matter expert, because I am. I tell people that all the time. Yes, I am a subject matter. Yes, I am. I know the subjects, but do you people know? And that's where it starts. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, Toni, please, let me come in here. I am in OD out of passion. I am here just for my passion. It doesn't really matter whatever is going on out there. Now, but I am also aware of the reality of things. Let me paint a practical picture. I want to flow from Dr. Justin's question, that the question Dr. Justin asked is going to remain a very hard nut to crack for a long time for OD practitioners. I'll give you a practical example. Now, we are in a very competitive environment. Something is responsible for that. Customers' tastes are increasingly changing, etc., etc. You have all sorts of demands here and there. The competition is high amongst organizations. Here you are coming in, to start telling an employer that change is not going to happen overnight. He wants the solution now. He wants the solution now because he needs to respond to what is going on out there. Because if he does not, customers will leave the organization, loyal customers will leave the organizations and move to their competitors. Of course, the implication on profits. And over time, a lot of things could happen. So, how, again, is going back to Dr. Dawson's question. How realistic, like you were talking about two kits, or you talk about toolbox, and what you should have in your toolbox. But we are faced with practical, real issues confronting organizations. So again, I am asking you, maybe you have a superior, comment to make, in addition to what you already said, to respond to the question that Dr. Justin asked, because the environment is hyper competitive and organizations need to respond. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. I truly appreciate it. So let me be really brief with you. You are correct in everything that you said. You see this picture here? The bow and arrow. For me, and I talk to my clients too, you know, in order to catch the goal, to get to the goal in archery, you have to pull back to propel forward, right? So that's the long game. So it's the short game. So tell me the short game, what do you want to be changed right now? Because what happens is there's two parts usually to you know, a customer centric issue, right? I understand that you're going to lose customers, right? And I understand that they want the solution right now, today, before they even knew they wanted. That's one of the things that I bring from the hospitality industry, the sense of urgency. There's a sense of urgency that we need to solve this right now, today, Toni. And I understand that. Okay, well, let's break that up. So as an OD practitioner, you have to be able to break up this into multiple pieces, because everything is not going to be solved right then and there. And if you think that everything is going to be solved right then and there, then that person is truly mistaken, because they couldn't solve it. They couldn't solve it. That's why they came to you. And I understand this is highly competitive, because listen, here in America, you have, you know, a dime a dozen, a consultant, dime a dozen, 50 in one room. And somebody says, oh, I can solve it right there, but they end up not solving it. And so that's why you're going to lose customers, or you're going to lose contracts. I am very real. I've lost many of contracts to many different people, and I'm okay with that, because I understood coming into OD that I pick and choose. I'm not saying that I don't have bills to pay and I don't have mortgages. I do. But you have to be steadfast and know to know thyself be true. And you have to know that's the uniqueness of you and the uniqueness of me. So hopefully that'll answer your question. You got to take the issue, break it up, and say, this is what we can solve now. This is what we can solve, and give it. If you want to do SMART goals, do SMART goals. We can solve this within the month. We can solve this within 3. This one will take a little bit longer, but this is still this is the issue. Hopefully that answered your question.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that dimension. And in most instances, this is what we see in organizations. And OD is there to help senior leaders make sense of the dynamics of change. To say, you can't change, especially when you're dealing with people, you can't change people overnight. Just because you made a nice presentation in a boardroom, people have already changed. That works for a week, but that does not bring sustainable results. And most of these consultants who raise their hands and say, I can fix that, they fix the problem for 2 days, but it's not sustainable. But as an OD approach will say, okay, let them fix. But if you really need sustainable strategic change, let's have a different conversation. Let's sit down and have a good conversation. If you are in a rush, please look somewhere. And we need to be humble enough to tell clients that. If you need a quick fix, look somewhere. If you really need sustainable strategic change, engage with us. And let's sit down and have a good conversation around how we can move forward. And when you have that sustainable strategic change, you empower the client to start seeing things beyond the horizon. So that next year they are not again in the same issue where they are saying the world is changing. There's too much change fatigue in organizations. Because this week we need to change this and we need a consultant. We get a consultant, he or she comes, fixes this problem, we are happy. 2 days down the line, there's another problem. And we continue in this perpetual change process. But OD says, we need to prepare your whole system to be ready for change and to start talking to itself about itself, to avoid these things where you are rushing change projects and you are panicking that we will lose customers. And if we don't do this, we lose customers. Hold on a second. Let's have a good conversation about this. And let's find and co-create. People in your system have the answers. But those consultants, quick fix, will say, I have the solution. and they present a nice paper, they fix the problem 2 hours, 3 hours down the line, the system is down. And it continues like that. So thank you for that. I hope it ignites some curiosity. And there are comments in the chat box, Toni. I'm not sure if you can see your chat box now. Mpati said, OD is not for those who are after money, but those who are after change. And this is the sustainable strategic change that we are talking about. Why exactly are you into consulting? Do you need money? If you're driven by money, make those nice proposals, appeal to C-suites, and do this quick fix consulting work. You make the money, but the organization does not transform. It just moves from one point to another, and again, problems come in. Mpati, do you want to talk about that? We have a few minutes before we close. And if anyone has a question, please do show by raising your hand. Question, comment, contribution. This is OD. In the spirit of OD, we need to hear everybody's voices before we close. Mr. Mpati, you want to share something on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Toni, for such an insightful a lesson I've had. I've joined a little bit late, but I've picked quite a lot of points about consulting. I just loved that point that you made, that if you are into OD consulting because of money, then you're in the wrong place. You just need to go out there and start playing some lottery. That's where maybe you will get money. But the reality of the matter, like Samuel was saying, it's most of us do not want to lose our customers. That's why we can do consulting for an hour and then you are gone. And I think it was last week we talked about this consulting of a doctor-patient, where you just meet them once and you are gone. You never come to consult and ask, how are things going? You know, it's just like you gave your patient a paracetamol and say, no, go back home, you'll be fine. So that's what most of us consulting are doing. Simply because we are looking for money, we want something to put on the table. But I think the statement that you also said, you know, as a consultant, you can also, you know, resist to get into a contract with someone because you're realizing they are not after what you want, but they are just after filling the documents of saying, no, we contacted the consultant and this is what they gave us, but for just those few hours. I just want to say, no, thank you. Thank you very much. We've learned quite a lot. We learned quite a lot.
Sorry, Toni, before I allow you to go, I just have one question to ask you, you know, personally. Just one question. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
What specifically?
She's not going, she's still here. Yes. Okay.
Yes, Toni, please. I want to ask you specifically, maybe one or two. What has really sustained you in this OD practice? What are those two things, maybe one or two, that have really sustained you, that you think, you know, you want to share with us, to keep in mind? What is that thing that has really sustained you as a practitioner or as a consultant?
So I just want to make sure I have this correct. What has sustained me in this field? That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You want to know the truth? The truth is that in my life, I have had a lot of rejection and a lot of failure. And I went into human resources because I wasn't getting jobs. And I wanted to understand, why wasn't I getting jobs? I wanted to understand the systems, right, of why I wasn't getting jobs. And the higher I went up in the hierarchy of HR, I began to realize it was a sham. Yeah, it was a sham. And so OD for me, it was either OD or psychology. And I'll probably end up going back to school for psychology. And what has sustained me is the fact that I know that there are many people behind me waiting for me to open doors for them. So when you hear this saying, be the change you want to see in this world, I truly live by that, because I know what it was for a little Black girl out of Southwest Philly in Jamaica not to have the opportunities that I should have been afforded. And so if I have the ability to change organizations and how they look at people like me, then I'm doing it. And I'm doing it with a passion and a fervency and a sense of urgency. And that's why my actual dissertation is the way it is. You know, the lived experiences of Black women entrepreneurs, what is stopping them from, what impediments are stopping them from scaling for them reaching the scalability continuum. That is why, because Black women are an organization. But if I had a decent job, you know, making my 6 figures, I probably wouldn't be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have that opportunity. So that sustains me. So again, like I always say, we come with our own luggage. We come with our own luggage to anything we come to. We come with our own luggage. And so that is my luggage. And my luggage, the stuff that's inside, sustains me. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, I believe you, Toni. I believe you. So what you are saying and not share now is to locate my luggage, isn't it? And come with it, you know, into the OD practice, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I remember a colleague reached to me the other day when we started OD, this COLD in 2018. And he said, you know what, Justin, I want to be in OD. And I asked him, tell me more, why OD? And he said, OD is the in thing now. And I said, tell me more about it. He said, I know, it's interesting. So I said, oh, good, then join OD and let's work together. We worked together for 3 months and he vanished. And he's nowhere to be found. So going back to the why, in our careers, in our professions, we have different professions represented here. Why are we engaged in this type of profession? Why do we do what we do? Are we in OD and we're going to leave OD for something else that's going to come up next year? The names that Toni was mentioning, the Jamiesons, the Edgar Shines, the Bob Mashak, Gilbert Bush, these people who have committed their life to the practice of OD, and they are not thinking otherwise. But for us young professionals, we want to be in OD this year, and next year a new management fund is going to come, we dump OD, we start doing something else. Are we really passionate about the profession and advancing it in organizations? This is where you then say, when I'm going into an organization, I go with a different mindset. I'm not going there with a mindset to say I need to make billions of dollars, but you're going there with the mindset of saying, I need to see this system working. And Toni connected that to her background. Do we have stories that connects us to our professions? Or we are just doing what we are doing for the sake of doing it? It's an interesting profession. It's a nice title. We can put it on social media. And this whole thing of personal branding that is preached these days, or it's something that you are really passionate about. This is quite important because it changes how we do our consulting work with organizations. For some of us, we go in organizations, whether you are paying me or you're not paying me, I don't care. I just want to see the system working. And for Toni to then tell a client that we are not aligned, it's because of that understanding to say, you know what you are talking about and what I stand for doesn't match. So please hang on there, look for another consultant. But if our mindsets are on money, I need to be rich and I need every client. I have to send proposals everywhere. I need to be the best. You know, people have a tendency of giving themselves this bullet consultant. And Toni should be calling herself, I am the quiver and arrow consultant, the best you can see in the world. And we give ourselves these titles. In OD, I have not seen that. We are just going there to see systems working. And if we have that mindset, it changes how we relate with organizations, how we relate with people, and how we engage with our clients. So connect your practice to your story. And what is the story that is connected to you being in OD? And how do you carry that story when you're engaging with clients and client systems? Yes, we have professions, we have families to feed, we need all this. But for OD, as a multidisciplinary field, focused on elevating humanity, do you really have a passion to elevate humanity? And if you do, how do you do that? It changes your consulting practice. So we need to hear those stories going forward. Anyone else with a comment? Mr. Paul, I saw your comment in the chat box. Would you want to speak into that as we wrap up? Tony, we don't want to hold you for long, maybe 10 minutes more.
Thank you, Doc. I think quite eye-opening. I joined a bit late, but I was struck by this point that OD is for those that want to see sustainable strategic change, and not for those that need to line up their pockets. Yeah, it really struck me. And as Tony has indicated, I think it really requires us to take stock of ourselves. And as you say, Dr. Justin, why am I into OD? And if I am not for the people, if I have no passion for seeing change in people, then it means it is not my field. But as for me, I feel I'm in the right field. Quite interested, quite happy to see some change in people, even for no dollar, but just to help people, just to help these small organizations move from point A to B brings joy. And I'm sure you really put it the best way that anyone can understand. And I'm sure I'm in the right train, ready to enjoy, especially this consulting business around OD. Looking forward to more on it. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, even though we need to have the money element captured in, we need to guard against being abused, because there's a tendency out there. Most OD people are abused in organizations. They are manipulated because we are people-centered. We care, we value people, we are so understanding, we are so listening, and organizations and people tend to manipulate and abuse that privilege. So yes, we need to be understanding, but we need to be steadfast in terms of our values and what we're trying to achieve. Cheza, I see your hand up, and then Mr. Mompati.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Tony, for the insightful presentation. It got me thinking, and I've been challenged. The first area that challenged me is the name of your consultancy. You took your star sign and interpreted it in such a way to make a difference in people's lives. I am also a Sagittarius, but I've never thought of my star sign in that way. So I've been challenged to really look at the things around me and see how those can actually make a difference as I embark on my OD practice. The second point is relationships are currency. I've got an HR background, but being an introvert, I don't really value relationships that much unless it's with individuals that I continually interact with. If I meet someone today, maybe for a workshop or a meeting, I hardly make an effort to follow through that relationship just to keep in touch. But I think this has been highlighted in this presentation and prior presentations, and I've been challenged to work on it so that I can enrich my OD practice. Thank you.
Thank you. You have anything to say, Tony, there before we go to Mr. Mompati?
No, thank you, Paul and Chietza. I love that. I don't like to butcher anybody's name. Yes, you know, who I am, you know, I am, like I said, I'm an archer, and, you know, really incorporating who you are and the strength of a Sagittarius, you know, we are half man and half beast and, you know, all of these things. But that's who I am, you know, incorporate who you are. And because you cannot change an organization if you're not willing to change yourself.
Thank you. Mr. Mumpati, your hand is up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Doc. No, I was just laughing alone when we were talking about don't be manipulated, don't be overused simply because you are people-centered. Just this morning, somebody called me from Chobe. You know, Chobe is 700 kilometers from where I am, and he says, come and address our students. They will be writing their exams on the 20th. And then I was saying, no, I don't have money. I was saying, but what are we going to do this time around? Then I just said, no, but if you had, you know, technology, we could just set up and then I'll talk over Zoom. But no, you realize they were very disappointed that I won't be coming that side. But I loved the point that Toni was bringing of carrying your luggage as you are doing your consultation. You know, many times we just go into consulting. I was looking forward to the story that Justin wanted to tell us of that man or woman who went for 3 months, the end story of why they ended. But I just want to say, you know, the reason why you entered into OD should be the reason that keeps you in there. If you just came in there for a wrong reason, then as you are moving along, your luggage will tell you now what you are carrying here is a different thing. So maybe you need to go back and carry what you were carrying. I went into consulting of working with schools simply because of what is transpiring or what is happening, and realizing where I'm coming from and why I am where I am now pushes me to still go back to the schools and the community to say, we need to work together as communities and with schools. So that's the reason that is keeping me working closely with schools. It is not after, you know, sometimes people will be asking me, how much are you charging? And I will say, no, I'm not charging. I'm here to be working with you because I'm not doing, most of the things are being done by you and not by me. So the reason should be the ones that is pushing us to stay and continue consulting in OD. So I just say, no, I learned quite a lot. I learned quite a lot. Storytelling, Toni, you have pushed us a little bit further into the OD consulting field. And I just want to say, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone with a burning comment before we close today's session? Anyone with a burning comment or contribution? All right. So Toni, thank you. Thank you so much. This is part of the group that we put under you for the Accountability Partner Program. I know you are also working on your thesis and all that. But just for people to have someone who they can engage with outside of our community. We meet every Monday and we do a lot of programs together. It becomes boring, I guess, for people to hear Dr. Justin every week. So at least if they can have conversation with you just to understand what they're doing, and a little bit of support, maybe 15-minute, 20-minute conversation to say, this is what I'm working on this time, and what can I do more will be quite helpful. So I encourage colleagues here. I think we put about 30, some of them are in Afghanistan. Currently, they are not active because of what's happening there. But the colleagues here, I think some of them have already started sending you emails.
No, I actually do.
Like, you. Yeah.
my colleague Emmanuel, we definitely talk, and Emmanuel, him and I have shared, you know, things, and it's really important. Like I said, you know, relationships are currency for me. I don't have any problem with someone contacting me on WhatsApp because I'm always on WhatsApp anyway. So not a problem. But no, I thank you. I thank you, everyone. I always tell people, you know, today we shared space together. And it's not easy to share space with people. But, you know, I appreciate sharing space with you guys today. I truly do. But I have to get ready to get off because I was supposed to be on a 1 o'clock call with someone. But everybody has my email address, and reach out, connect on LinkedIn. And Dr. Justine, thank you so much for inviting me. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the time. And we'll keep asking you to be part of us going forward as well. Thank you so much for this time. Anyone who wants to say some words before she closes, she goes? Violet, can you do that for us? Violet or Wontley, then we close today's session.
I just like her smile. You know, she smiled all through, and it's very lively and all that. So it's very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. Violet, can you close the session for us? Just words of appreciations to Toni.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Toni, thank you very much. It's been an insightful a conversation. I think, you know, the emphasis on being the use of self. If you are in it for money, then it's not for you. I think for me, that has been quite insightful, and being open with your client in terms of communicating that change is incremental. Change does not happen overnight. I think we tend to forget that, but when we realize that we can then be gracious to ourselves, gracious to the people that we are working with. So thank you very much. In a nutshell, that's my comments, and I look forward to engaging with you.
Thank you so much, Toni. Thank you so much, Toni. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll end today's session here. Appreciated. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Toni. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.